Hey everyone, Professor Akali here, bringing you the Ultimate Season 7 Rework Akali Guide. I am an Akali one-trick with over 500,000 mastery points on Akali, 4 accounts with Mastery 7. I have one-tricked my way to Diamond 3 last season with Akali, and have used Akali to climb multiple accounts into Diamond easily. This will be the best Akali guide on YouTube, so I hope you guys enjoy it. By the end of the guide, you should have most of, if not all, the information needed to play Akali at a high level. There will be timestamps in the description if you want to skip to a specific part. So what is Akali good for, and why should you play her over champions like Syndra, Yasuo, or Katarina? 3 main things. She's easy to pick up and play, meaning anyone can play her with just a little bit of practice. She excels at stomping in solo queue thanks to her insane burst, sustain in lane, 3 dashes, and wall jump. And lastly, because Akali is a ton of fun to play. No skill shots means that all you have to do is worry about dashing around and one-shotting carries. Akali is a champion that is easy to learn, but very difficult to master due to her nature as an assassin. You have to position very well, knowing when to play safe, and when you should jump into 5 enemies to get those one-shots off. See, the thing about Akali is that while she isn't a top-tier meta pick like Syndra or other champions, she is an amazing assassin, has an insane amount of snowball potential, and gets early kills easily once you learn how to play her well. She's one of the champions that can easily 1v5 Penta when she's fed enough, and while Akali isn't meta or LCS worthy because of the fact that high level players focus her down very fast and chain CC her, I believe that Akali is a great champion for anyone trying to climb out of bronze, silver, gold, or even platinum. There even are challenger Akali players such as Voyboy, Westrice, TF Blade, and Lonesome Ranger. If you like hard carrying games, one-shotting people, and being able to make crazy outplays, Akali is the champion for you. Starting with Akali's passive, this is something you always want to keep an eye on, similar to the cooldowns of her other spells. Throughout the entire game, if you find a good opportunity to use the heal from your passive, do it. Anytime it is available in lane and you won't get harassed for it, and assuming you won't mess up farming a creep under the tower because of it, heal up so you can get the cooldown going to maximize the amount of sustain you get from her passive. As for the burst from her passive, it can be used to maximize the harass you do in lane, and whenever there's an opportunity to get the burst ready from your passive, whether it be by auto-attacking scuttles, a jungle monster, a minion, or even a tank in a teamfight, the extra burst you get from your passive is incredibly useful when assassinating squishy champions. Next up, Akali's Q. It is a spell I always max and recommend that you max, unless laning against a top lane tank that you don't think you'd be able to kill in lane. Against tanks, you can max E to help you farm for late game. Even against tanks though, I usually max Q, as the value of having a ton of single target bursts from your ranked up Q, along with 3 jumps to ensure you can proc multiple Qs, is so incredibly high. Whether you play Akali top or mid lane, the level and gold advantage you get compared to junglers in bot lane means that there will always be enemies you can easily kill, you just have to find them. If I play Akali top versus a Garen that rushes 2 MR items, neither of us will die because obviously he's too tanky and I have too much sustain, but I can still roam mid for a kill, try to catch out the enemy jungler for a kill, or just swap with bot lane, abusing Akali's incredibly high 2v1 potential. No joke, with enough skill, Akali with the Gunblade can actually 2v1 all bot lanes, even some bot lanes that are more fed than Akali, just due to the fact that AD carries are so squishy, and Akali obviously has so much damage and 4 jumps to stick onto the enemies. On top of the burst you get from Akali's Q, it will be essential in most matchups for early farming at a safe distance, especially if you play Akali in the mid lane, as most enemy mid laners, especially the ranged AP ones, will poke, if not at least attempt to harass you in lane if you try to extend to last hit a minion with an auto attack. Because of the low base damage on the first part of her Q, the Mark Throw, it is very difficult at first to use it to last hit from a far distance, combining its slow travel speed and low damage. With enough practice and steady ping, you should be able to get the hang of it though after a few games. Up next we have Akali's Shroud. Akali's new Shroud gives her a blink, and enemy champions can't use pink wards to reveal Akali in Shroud. Because of the fact that Akali can blink whenever she uses her Shroud, it is much easier for her to harass in lane, and can help her jump over walls offensively and defensively. Also, thanks to Season 7 Akali's new blink, you can now avoid being pulled by Blitzcrank, kicked by Lee Sin, or displaced by any champion. Simply cast the blink as you are about to be displaced and it will cancel it, similar to Ezreal's E. Because of the fact that Akali's new Shroud won't let her be revealed by pink wards, she has much more survivability in teamfights, and can now win lane matchups she lost, including matchups versus Riven and all other champions that would like to all-in Akali at level 6 with a pink ward. In teamfights, Akali can use her spells, then wait in her Shroud for her cooldowns to come back up, rather than having to spam weak auto attacks or run away. This is assuming you don't get hit by anything that reveals invisible units like Lee Sin's E and Q. Other things that Shroud can be used for include: you can use the Shroud Blink to catch up to an enemy to get in range for your ult. You can pretend to Shroud Blink over a wall as a juke, and hope they flash or jump over the wall in an attempt to chase you. You can Shroud near a brush or a corner, confusing the enemy or enemies chasing you. If you Shroud and you see an enemy run one direction, you can just run the other way. You can use the Shroud Blink to dodge skill shots and CC being thrown at you, or even jump over it if you're feeling ballsy enough. If the enemy laner is farming a caster minion under his or her tower, you can proc your Q under the enemy tower and quickly blink away from tower range. This will definitely require practice and timing. You can use the Shroud Blink and movement speed to exit the base faster after respawning or recalling. This isn't recommended if there's any action near or in your base. You can hide in your Shroud if you get caught out by the enemy team and need your nearby team's assistance to survive. You can Shroud right before hitting level 6 so that the laner you're against doesn't realize you are now level 6 with 3 dashes. Onto our next spell. Akali's E is used for a few things. In fights, use Akali's E right after proccing Q. It is important to proc Q first when engaging, because a lot of the time enemies may dash, blink, or flash away from you before you can proc Q, so as a rule of thumb, auto then E. Akali's E is also her primary spell for pushing waves. Killing anything, jungle monsters, minions, or champions, will reset Akali's E cooldown tremendously, so try to get one creep low, use E to AoE the whole wave, killing that first minion, then getting the reset and quickly E AoE the whole wave again to clear the entire wave. The unique thing about Akali's E is that it does physical damage, meaning if the laner you're against rushes a Negatron's Cloak, your E damage won't be reduced by the MR. Also, a cool little glitch with Akali's E is if you start casting your E near an enemy, even if they flash your E, it will still fully damage them. The last thing I want to mention about Akali's E is make sure you don't spam it if you don't have enough energy for your Q. Your Q is much more valuable if an enemy or enemies jump you, so be sure you're always watching your energy bar. Onto Akali's final spell, her ult. 3 dashes, immediately available at level 6, on an ammo system that recharges, similar to Corki ult. Also, getting a champion kill or assist gives Akali an extra dash if she isn't already at 3 available dashes. There are a ton of ways you can use your ult, but most of the time it will be used to jump onto an enemy carry, or used to jump onto a minion or jungle monster to get you in range of being able to jump onto the enemy carry. You can also use Akali's ult to do the following: secure cannon minions from far away, ward over a wall and jump to a jungle monster for a sweet escape, surprise your opponent in lane by jumping onto a minion and then using your gunblade active on them. If you do this, by the time the enemy has vision of you, it will already be too late. Use the Shroud Blink for extra gap closing if you're unable to get in range to gunblade or ult. And lastly, use your ult to dodge skill shots you would have otherwise gotten hit by. Onto runes, I will start with the page I would recommend if you only want to make one page for Akali based on your role. If you plan on playing Akali mid primarily as a newer Akali player, this is the page I recommend. 9 flat 80 reds, 9 health per level yellows, 9 magic resist blues, and 3 flat AP quints. If you plan on primarily playing Akali top as a newer player, I recommend using 9 flat 80 reds, 9 flat armor yellows, 9 flat AP blues, and 3 flat AP quints. I tend to use flat 80 reds over a hybrid pen for a few reasons. Armor pen, or lethality as it's now called, was nerfed, and Akali's E, her main source of physical damage, was also nerfed in Season 7. Also, the scaling on Akali's passive means that more AD gives her a decent amount of sustain early on. The flat armor and MR runes are self-explanatory, and I use flat AP blues and quints because they give you a ton of extra early game damage that you want to have for those level 6 or even pre-6 kills. For the hardcore Akali mains or players aspiring to be Akali mains, there are 3 rune pages I use. The first page is going to be Akali versus AD champions. I run flat AD reds, flat armor yellows, flat AP blues, and flat AP quints. The second page is going to be for Akali versus AP farm lanes, AP champions that don't harass you too much in lane like an Aurelion Sol or a low rank Twisted Fate, and that is going to be almost the same exact page with only one difference, being instead of running flat armor yellows, you would run health per level yellows or flat health. I prefer health per level because most professional players use it and Akali really doesn't build any health items. The last main rune page I use is for Akali versus AP lane bullies. This is going to be the LeBlancs, Annies, Syndras, Cassiopeias, and all other champions that are looking to harass you with AP spells in lane. For this page, I run flat 80 reds, health per level yellows, flat MR blues, and flat AP quints. If you're a less experienced Akali player, there are a few things I would recommend adjusting to this page. The first thing is instead of getting health per level yellows, You may just want to get flat health yellows to help your early game, and assure you don't die and automatically lose lane to a snowballing Annie or Syndra. The second thing would be to throw in anywhere from 1 to 3 flat magic resist Quints into your rune page for the same reasoning, to survive against hard counters and AP lane bullies. Onto masteries. I won't explain every mastery I take, but I'll go over some of the more important ones. The first mastery page is going to be for Akali for beginner players. This is going to be for the people that haven't played enough games to be completely comfortable playing Akali. In this mastery page, I recommend a few adjustments to my regular pages. I think Feast should be taken over Fresh Blood for survivability in lane, Biscuits should be taken for the same reason, and Dangerous Game should be taken regardless of whether you're mid or top lane. This mastery page is just preference, as there really is no perfect mastery page for Akali. As long as you have Thunderlords as your keystone, it really is just preference. With that said, the next page is for expert level Akalis in the mid lane. As you can see, I take Fresh Blood over Feast for the extra damage, as well as Assassin over Biscuits also for the extra damage. All damage is good damage, and as an expert level Akali, I am willing to sacrifice some sustain in lane for a better chance to snowball by getting those first few kills easier. The last page is going to be for expert level Akalis in the top lane. The only difference between this page and the mid lane one is I like to take Greenfather's Gift, as there are 3 brushes in the top lane you can use to make your Harass in lane even stronger. As for starting items, I always take Boots and Potions against AP champions, and Cloth Armor against AD champions. The reason I take Boots over Darksteel is because Boots help you dodge skill shots, harass in lane, escape ganks by having more movement speed, and help you roam faster. The reason I take Cloth Armor against AD champions is because you can trade and harass them if they are melee champions while taking less damage, while you still have 4 potions to help you sustain in lane to guarantee your level 6. For summoner spells, I always take Flash Ignite regardless of the matchup, regardless of lane. Some people may disagree with this, but my approach towards solo queue has always been to carry my team as hard as possible. Akali is meant to snowball as a champion, and having Ignite gives her so much extra kill potential in the form of true damage. Even late game, after all, Akali's role as an assassin is to murder carries, and having Ignite obviously is very helpful in fulfilling her job. Moving on to Akali's item build, due to the Rylai's nerfs, the AP scaling nerf on Akali's ult, and the fact that pink wards no longer work versus Akali Shroud, I believe that I've constructed the most optimal build for Akali, depending on each situation. Without spending 10 minutes on each item build, let's get right into it. Akali should always get Gunblade as her first item, prioritizing Hextech Revolver over Bilgewater Cutlass. Sorcerer's Boots are also always recommended to be built, preferably early on. The only situation you would build Ninja Tabbies is when the entire enemy team is AD, and the only situation you would build Merc Treads is when the entire enemy team, minus the AD carry, is AP. After Gunblade and Boots, depending on who you are laning against and what type of damage the enemy team has, here are some recommended item builds. Versus an AP laner whose team has a mix of AD and AP damage, I recommend you build Gunblade into Sork Boots, into Negatrons, into Zhonya's Hourglass, into Lichbane, into Voidstaff, into Guardian's Angel, and you should sell your boots for Luden's Echo if the game hasn't ended by then. Versus an AD laner whose team has a mix of AD and AP damage, I recommend you build Gunblade into Sork Boots, into Zhonya's Hourglass, into Voidstaff, into Rabadons, into Lichbane, and be sure to sell your boots for Luden's Echo if the game hasn't ended already. Versus an AP laner whose team is all AP, I recommend Gunblade into Merc Treads, into Abyssal Scepter, into Spirit Visage, into Banshee's Vial, into Mob Malmortius. Versus an AD laner whose team is all AD, I recommend Gunblade into Ninja Tabbies, into Zhonya's Hourglass, into Sunfire Cape, into Deadman's Plate, into GA. These are general build paths. Each game is a new situation, and you should always be looking to build depending on the game flow. For example, if you are Akali top lane versus an AD champion, but down in the mid lane the enemy Syndra is 10-0 and they also have an Elise jungle, you definitely want to get a lot of MR early on for when you teamfight. On to Akali's combo and advanced mechanics. For these two parts I'm going to copy and paste previous videos on my channel, so if you have seen these videos before, visit the description to skip past these parts. Hey everyone, Professor Akali here, bringing you a guide on the different advanced mechanics you can use to become a greater Akali in Season 7 after the rework. I'm just going to quickly list them off with a video example of each mechanic. Get the second part of your passive active, then Shroud Blink to proc Q and the second part of your passive. You can also get the second part of your passive active and then ult Q auto once you're 6. Gunblade after you've reached the enemy, not mid-jump, to get the extra time on the slow while you chase them down. You can use your Shroud Blink to cancel out hooks like Blitzcrank, just like an Ezreal can. Try to hit level 6 while you're in your Shroud so the enemy doesn't see you level up, giving you a chance to surprise them for a good harass or even a kill. Learn the exact range of your flash ult, as it is going to be the most important combo late game to assassinate the enemy carries. Hey everyone, Professor Akali here, bringing you a video on the different Akali combos you can do throughout the game, and the combos you can use to harass the enemy within lane. The term I'm going to be using throughout the video, queuing your passive, just means auto-attacking something, usually a minion, to get the second part of your passive, the extra burst, active. Onto combos. Our first harass combo is going to be the level 1 passive Q into Q auto to proc Q, Thunderlords, and your passive. This usually only works against melee champions, but it also does work against low-ranked ranged champions that aren't smart enough to just run back. On to the second and third combos. These are what you're going to be using from level 2 to 5 to harass in lane. That is to Q your passive, then Q the enemy, Shroud Blink to close the gap, and auto attack, running away safely in Shroud after you've harassed the opponent. A more effective alternative of this is to do the same exact combo, but after auto attacking you also use your E for extra harass. A final pre-6 combo that is extremely deadly but also extremely unlikely that the opponent will let you get off is throwing your Q on the enemy, waiting for the cooldown to come back up, then Qing your passive and Shroud Blinking to close the gap, proc the first Q, immediately E, and then throw another Q and proc that as well. But man, if your opponent is bad enough to let you get that combo off, you're lucky to get such an easy lane. Moving on to post level 6 combos, we have the standard Q your enemy and wait until your Q is available again, then ult the enemy and proc 2 Qs combo. This works well in top lane against melee champions that are tanky and don't think it's going to hurt them that much, but most of the time if you have your Q mark on a squishy mid laner, they won't let you get in range for you to ult onto them. If you are able to get this combo off, make sure you use your E immediately after you proc the first Q so that the cooldown of your E comes up faster as well. This next combo is something I use to catch enemies a lot mid game, when squishy enemy champions can still be seen overextending and usually aren't grouped with their entire team. If you are able to kill an enemy, they usually know you can and will immediately run away when they see you, but this combo makes it so that by the time they see you, it's too late. What you want to do when showing up to lane is ult onto the closest minion, immediately gunblade them if you have it, and QW auto, sticking onto them before they have a chance to run away. The last combo I wanted to address is the one-shots combo. This is the combo that does the most burst within the shortest amount of time, giving the enemies the least amount of time to exhaust you, heal, etc. That combo is going to be the passive Q into ult Q gunblade auto E. The reason why you don't Q then ult is because your Q's travel time is so slow that a lot of the time you will actually land on an enemy and auto attack them before your mark has even reached them. Moving on to actual laning, from level 1 to 5, look to safely last hit from a safe distance with your Q, and let your opponent shove you under tower. It is very important that you understand Akali's goal from level 1 to 5, and that is to safely farm and stay until lane until you hit level 6 with at least 10,050 gold for a Hextech Revolver. Whenever the enemy laner uses a vital cooldown or overextends and you are able to harass them, go for it. But other than that, just farm for level 6. Akali's level 6 with Revolver is her first large power spike. The worst thing that can happen while you play Akali is dying pre-6 and having your whole game messed up. Once you get level 6, you immediately get 3 jumps, so if you have managed to weaken the enemy laner around 60 to 80% health, you may be able to kill them depending on the situation. After you recall to grab a Hextech Revolver, you will have insane kill potential against anyone besides a top lane tank. There are 2 ways to get fed at this point. Either shove the wave and look to roam and gank a lane, or freeze the wave near your tower, forcing the enemy laner to overextend and be in your kill range. A common method of getting kills in lane is to ult onto the enemy, Q auto E, proccing Thunderlords and Revolver. At this point the enemy is weakened and you can shove wave. Once you're under the tower, Q them once to get the mark on them, wait until your Q is up again, then ult, proc the first Q with your auto, immediately E and Q auto again, finishing with Ignite if necessary. In the mid game as Akali, you can either split push or group with your team to take objectives. Akali's kit is incredible for 1v2ing or even 1v3ing enemies, even if she's not fed. This means that she can offer a ton of pressure split pushing. As mentioned earlier, when Akali gets her first item, her Gunblade, she can actually swap with bot lane and 1v2 double kill all combos of enemy AD carry and support. Try it for yourself, it is a very good strategy you can use, especially when your bot lane is feeding and you need them to stop. As for grouping, the goal should always be to take objectives, whether it be towers, Rift Herald, or Dragon. An experienced Akali loves to teamfight, as her incredible bursts and dashes allow her to quickly assassinate a target and jump out of danger. Also, mid-game Akali can dive enemy carries under tower very easily with some practice. Late game is a little more tricky as Akali. Most of the time you want a group looking to one-shot the enemy AD carry, which you should be able to do. Because Akali is so squishy however, and the late game enemy carries are always grouped up, it is very difficult to jump into 5 enemies without getting instantly CC'd and killed. By the time it's late game, one good assassination on a carry means that you will not only be more likely to win that teamfight, but also win the game. If the enemy carry doesn't have any MR, a full build Akali can one-shot a carry by simply flash, ult, gunblade, Q auto E igniting. But by flashing into the enemy's backline to one-shot the carry, you leave yourself very vulnerable to be killed by the 4 remaining enemies. This is where your Zhonya's and Shroud will become very useful, as you can use both of these to stall and hide while you wait for your team's assistance. That's it for the video guys. I hope you learned a lot about how to play Akali and will be able to use her to climb efficiently in solo queue. This guide took over a week to make, and crazy enough was over 3,500 words and 7 pages long. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like, as it helps me a lot, and be sure to subscribe if you are new for future high level guides. Thank you.